All right. We are live. And you know what? I just realized. Okay, hold on. I've used StreamYard before. Here we go, the comments. Okay. Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to the Non-Midlife Crisis here on this channel. Well, first of all, I am Krista, and on this channel, it is my mission to eradicate the myth of the midlife crisis one video at a time. I do not believe in the midlife crisis. I believe in a midlife catharsis, a midlife awakening. And I designed this channel specifically for women in midlife who are trying to also push against that idea of the midlife crisis, and I want us all to live the best life that we possibly can. And today I'm very excited about doing my first Candid with Krista of 2026 live. And if you are seeing this on the replay in the future, please drop us a comment. Let us know that you were here, and we appreciate you showing up. So I have the distinct pleasure of talking to Adalia of Picky Girl Travels today. And Adalia was the first person that I came across on YouTube when I started my journey of researching Mexico City and living here. And coming across her content was life-changing and made such a huge impact on my research and deciding to move here. So I want to first of all, I'm sure if you're here, you've probably seen Adalia somewhere out in the sphere. But I want to go ahead and just read Adalia's bio, and then we're going to just get into some talk all about midlife and her life here in Mexico City and abroad in general, and all the juicy things. So Adalia Aborisade, popularly known as Picky Girl Travels the World, retired early at the age of 45 on a teacher's salary. She is a prime example that with the right mindset and tools, anyone can achieve their dreams, whether that means exploring new countries or building a secure financial future. Adalia wholeheartedly believes that everyone should be able to make confident financial decisions and has made it her mission to teach those who lack the knowledge to do so. With her unique blend of personal experiences and professional insights, she offers practical tips and resources to help individuals transform their lives. And again, like I just said, that is all very true. So much wonderful content. Thank you, Adalia, for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm very honored to be here today. 100%.
Oh, thank you. I feel the same. I know that you're a very busy lady, so taking the time out to talk with me, I really do. I can't say enough about how excited I am about it. So let's dive into it. So obviously, I gave a little bit of background about your story, but if you could just fill in some gaps. How did you make it to Mexico City? What was your trajectory? Let the people know a little bit more about you.
Oh, wow. I was thinking about this when you read the part about me retiring at 45. That was not like planned. I was going to say so little in my life has been planned. And is that because I'm an Aries? Is that because I'm probably undiagnosed ADHD? Who knows? But around the time that I turned 40, pre-40, like I divide my life into those two camps. Pre-40, I was married, 2 kids, living in Texas, teaching in public schools. I firmly believe there is something that magical that happens when a woman turns 40. And the magic happened to me. And I looked around and said, if this was all the life I got, would I be happy? And the answer resoundingly was no. And so I said to myself, well, you need to do something. If this is not it, you need to do something. And so, ended up getting divorced and moving abroad was part of that. That was a lifelong goal, a lifelong dream of mine.
Mm-hmm.
But life happens. That got pushed to the back.
Mm-hmm.
And when again found myself in complete control of my life, it was like, I'm only going to do the things that I want to do, the things that make me happy. I
Mm-hmm.
thought about, well, that is something you've always wanted to do. Why not
Mm-hmm.
do that now?
Mm-hmm.
And already being a teacher in the States allowed me to use that as a means to earn money while living abroad. So initially, I left the US with my youngest
Mm-hmm.
and moved to Tegucigalpa, Honduras,
Mm-hmm.
which is not a place people move to. People often move from it, but very few people move to there. I
Mm-hmm.
moved there, was supposed to be there 2 years for my contract. Um, that did not work out in the way that I thought it would.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, I had already started to think about what was my plan when my contract was up.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that I wanted to stay in Latin America. And so I set about researching and had narrowed it down to either Mexico City or Medellin, Colombia.
Mm-hmm.
And just so happens, I had a lot of travel planned that summer. The way things worked out, I was like, okay, I can fit in a few day trip, like maybe like 4 days
Mm-hmm.
to Mexico City to check it out. And then the plan was to eventually go to Medellin
Mm-hmm.
to check it out and then decide. It is 9 years later, and I've still not been to Medellin. But
What? That is
yes,
okay.
because right after I'm doing this, that's when my boss comes to me and says, "Hey, we're restructuring things, and this is what your job will look like next year." And because I had already decided I am
Mm-hmm.
only doing things that I want to do. I am not shrinking. I am not, taking a back seat. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to be the bigger person. I'm not doing any of that anymore.
Right.
When
Yes.
they presented this new thing to me, I was like, that's not what my contract says. I'm not interested. No, thank you. Now,
Mm-hmm.
there is a part of me that believes they waited as long to tell me this as they did because I was the last staff member that they shared
Mm-hmm.
this plan with so
Okay.
that hiring season was over and that I would be incentivized to stay. And
Mm-hmm.
luckily for me, I had found Stephanie Perry on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
Vicarious, and she was in the midst of or wrapping up her grown up gap year at like
Mm-hmm.
41.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, instead of looking for another job, how about that ticket I bought to just check out Mexico City? How about I move to Mexico City for the next year and that be my grown up gap year?
Okay. Okay.
And so got to Mexico City specifically,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely fell in love the minute. So that little 4 days, that became trying to find what neighborhood do I want to live in, that sort
Mm-hmm.
of thing. I
Mm-hmm.
was here for a year before I decided to go back to work because my youngest was going to go to college. Somebody needed to pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
And that took me very, very briefly to the Kingdom of Kuwait. I will say that one's experience, because nobody goes to Kuwait just for the hell of it, is because you have a job.
All right.
Um, your experience there is totally dependent on the quality of your employer. My employer was horrible, therefore my experience was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Pivoted from that, and a job in China found me because I don't recall actually interviewing for this job, but they
Okay.
they had a mid-year replacement. They were like, it's 4 months. And I just told myself it can't be worse than Kuwait. I went to
Mm-hmm.
China. I ended up being there for a year and a half. And um, we could go into why I didn't want to be in China, but that could be a story for another day. I don't know if you want to get into that. But
Yes.
I never when I was in Kuwait and immediately started looking for another job, I
Mm-hmm.
made a point never to apply for a school in China. I'd already been to China twice. I knew I did not want to be there. And then
Okay.
somehow I had a conversation with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
All it was a conversation. And then, like, the day before Christmas or the day after Christmas, I get an email with an offer for a job. So
But you knew though, but
I,
okay.
I knew this person worked at a school, but really, literally, it was a conversation. It was not like a stealth job interview. It was
Okay.
literally just a conversation.
Okay.
And so I was like, oh, I didn't realize I was supposed to be applying for this job.
Okay.
Um, got this job at a Canadian offshore school in China. Ended up extending my contract from 4 months to an additional year. But I
Mm.
knew going back, and I spent my summer in Mexico City because, as
Okay.
far as I was concerned, I would always end up back here at some
Mm.
point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and, like, got residency, did all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then when summer vacation was over, it was time for me to go back to work. Almost immediately, I was like, okay, this is it. I'm done. So
Mm-hmm.
I had told them in December 2019,
Mm-hmm.
I will not be coming back, probably before they even asked. And then, of course, the pandemic. And so it took me a little longer to get out of China than it was supposed to, but I got out and I came back home to Mexico City, and I have been here ever since. And yeah.
Wow. So yeah, that's one of the things, honestly, that was very fascinating to me as I came to know you via YouTube when I found you and learned about your journey. But talking to you now and you saying that China, you knew you deliberately skipped that as an option. So then what kind of negotiation did you have to do with yourself, if any, to end up going there after all?
Well, okay. When I was a public school teacher in Texas, we had like an educational exchange with a school in southern China.
Mhm.
And their kids came to our school, and I was one of the adults that went when our kids went to their school. So I
Okay.
had been there and I had seen what a Chinese public school was like. I
Mm.
knew I did not want to teach in one of those. Class sizes are sometimes 50.
Okay.
Now, the children are fairly well behaved, but that's still a lot of kids.
50?
Although,
50 to 1?
yes, although now that I think about it, I've had classes in Texas with like me and 42 kids. So probably not that much difference. But
That's
I
wild.
knew I
Okay.
did not want to work at a Chinese public school
Mm.
because Chinese public schools can have enrollment in the tens of thousands.
Wow. Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
And then there is the cultural part of China. My
Hmm.
very, very
Hmm.
first visit to China was in 2013. And after a week, I remember wanting to go home. I never want to go home. I never want to leave the
Mm.
party early. And
Right.
just saying, this is the most foreign place I have ever been. And that's
Hmm.
not a knock against the Chinese. It's just like, it's not the place for me.
Yes.
So when this opportunity came up, it really was me telling myself, well, can this be worse than Kuwait? Like, I still got to pay for this kid to go to school. Can
Hmm.
this be worse than Kuwait? And
Hmm.
so I was like, if it's 4 months, I can do 4 months. And it
Hmm.
turned out not to suck in the way I thought it was going to suck.
Okay. Okay.
Excuse me, which
Yes.
sounds horrible, but I'm gonna keep it real.
Yes,
And
please.
so, it was okay, but because people often ask me like, "Oh my gosh, what was it like living in China at the beginning of the pandemic?"
Hmm.
And a lot of the things that I did not enjoy about China, and maybe had I never lived in Mexico City first,
Hmm.
it would not have been so like, "Ugh, I am just not with this." But
Mm.
because I
Hmm.
had been someplace that was so good,
Yes.
it's very hard to be in a place where, you're not true. I was not
Hmm.
treated in the way that I wanted to. the cultural differences were more than I wanted to surmount. Let's just
Mm,
say that.
yeah, understandable, understandable. Okay, so now when you left, okay, so when you left China, was that the point? So I guess my question is, did you retire when you left the States? Were you technically retired in the States as a teacher, but then
No.
just taught overseas? Like, how did that happen?
I expected, now I knew when I left the States, I knew that I was never going to teach at a school in the States again.
Mm-hmm,
I knew that, but I
mm-hmm,
figured I would teach internationally
mm-hmm,
until whenever. And honestly, when I left the US in 2016,
mm-hmm,
I the thought was maybe one day I can retire. So
mm,
early retirement is not on the map at all. But
mm-hmm.
then after a year being in Honduras, where I took a 60% pay cut from what I was earning in Texas, which wasn't that much to begin with.
I was
Um,
just about to ask or say, oh my gosh, okay.
but I was still able, because low key teaching abroad is a big hack. I was still able to save like half of my income
Okay.
because your where you're living is covered, your insurance is covered. Depending on the quality of the school, they may give you grocery money, they may
Mm,
cover yourself, various things like that. And
okay.
so then when I took the grown up gap year, because I was
Mm-hmm,
really on the fence, like, is this it? Could
mm,
I not go back to work?
mm-hmm,
And looking at the numbers, I thought that's when it became clear to me that, oh, if I never go back to the States,
mm-hmm,
retirement isn't something very, very far off. It is like within the next decade. And
mm,
so when I decided to go back to work, yes, I needed to pay for school, but
mm-hmm,
also my goal was to stack as much cash as I could. Like I had
mm-hmm,
money invested, have some
mm-hmm,
cash. And then it was because more when I left China, that is when I consider myself to be retired. And I was like, I am not doing this kind of work anymore.
mm-hmm,
In the financial independence, retire early world,
mm-hmm,
fire,
mm-hmm,
they call what I am coast fire, in that I have enough money invested that if I just let it do what it needs to do, when I am
mm-hmm,
old enough to touch that money,
mm-hmm,
I'm good. But between now and then, I just need a little piece of a job to pay my everyday bills. And
mm,
because I don't live in the United States,
mm-hmm.
my everyday bills, with the exception of traveling and buying
Mm-hmm.
fabric, my everyday bills are not that much. Now, I have made them a lot more expensive than they needed to be. But
Right.
so that's it is really, it wasn't until I left the US
Mm-hmm,
that retiring, period, became an option. And
mm-hmm,
absolutely, retiring early was not even in the ballpark
mm.
before my grown up gap year.
Wow. So it really, that's fascinating. And then also I think it's even more so to think that you took a 60% pay cut off of not off of a salary to what you said was not that much to begin with. You go overseas and then the world essentially opens up in terms of you really being able to see a life for yourself that does not require you to be working in the
Yeah.
same way that you were. Fascinating. Okay. And then, yeah, and it's interesting also to hear Honduras, Kuwait, and then China. I, that none of those were on your radar initially
Oh, absolutely
when you were
not.
thinking about
Absolutely not.
when you were thinking about moving abroad.
When I first considered moving abroad and teaching, you're in the Facebook groups, you're in the listservs and all that kind of stuff, and people are talking about like what countries have the biggest savings potential, like the biggest gap between how much you make and how much your cost of living is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And the I think it's a very American response to be like, oh, I'm gonna go where I can make the most money, blah, blah, blah. And the more
Mm-hmm.
I thought about it, I was like, I want to learn to speak Spanish. So
Mm-hmm.
that immediately put me in Latin America, and nobody comes to Latin America for the money. They don't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so it is, yeah. And so I never in a million years thought I was going to go to Honduras. My oldest daughter, when I told her, I said, "Hey, me and your sister, we're moving to Honduras," and this is a little shameful because I used to be a geography teacher. My child says, "Oh, Mexico," and I said, "No, not Mexico, Honduras." She was like, "Yeah, yeah, Mexico." And I had to pull out a map and
Right.
show, like, no, not the same place, not the same place at all. So no,
Yes. Yes.
never in a million years would I have thought I would have been there.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the kindest people in the world. It was an
Mm-hmm.
incredible opportunity for my youngest child
Mm-hmm.
to have that experience of living there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to ask you that. That was my follow-up question was how did your daughter, uh, the daughter that was coming with you, when you told her, hey, we're about to move to Honduras, because how old was she when this happened, and what was her response to this?
She was in the ninth grade as I proposed this.
Okay.
And I said, hey, because there was a part of me that thought, okay, I'll just wait 3 years until she graduates high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of thought, well, why do I have to wait?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I decided that I wasn't going to. And I said, hey, this is what I want to do. I said, I would like you to come with me if there is a place, because I sort of framed it as it can be a study abroad for you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going forever. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to go forever. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, if there is a particular country that you would be more interested in, I can like focus my job search on that. And she
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh no, go do you, whatevs.
Yeah.
I'm staying here.
Yeah.
And then I landed the job in Honduras. And then
Mm-hmm.
after the fact, she was like, is that offer still available? I would like to come with you.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so, yeah, then it was like, well, let me talk to the school because, when you teach internationally, a part of your package often is free tuition for
Mm-hmm.
1 to 2 children. Some schools will do more than that. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had assured them I was coming alone. And so then I was like, hey, by the way, my
Mm-hmm.
kid's coming.
Mm-hmm.
It all worked out.
Yeah.
She had the time of her life. I mean, full social calendar, the amount of like teacher student time she got because this school was super small. There were
Mm-hmm.
only 7 sophomores.
Wow. And hearing that in comparison to what you were talking about in your experience teaching in China or schools in China rather, and
Yeah.
even you class size teaching in Texas, that's remarkable.
Yeah. So it was an incredible experience. And actually she had decided to return to the States before they had approached me with the restructuring. And
Okay.
so knowing that she had already decided she was going back to the States, that also made it easier for me to be like, okay, well, no, thank you. I won't be doing this new thing. I will
Hmm.
go and figure out something else to do.
Okay. And then so she finished up high school in the States.
Yes.
Okay. All right. But I mean, that I'm glad to hear that it was a wonderful experience for her and how enriching it was, and that that's something that she'll carry with her, and I'm sure carrying with her forever. And I'm wondering also, do you think that her having that experience, is she a world traveler like you or either of your daughters, or where do they settle with
She's
that?
absolutely more inclined to do that than my oldest.
Mm-hmm.
She immediately, one of the friends she had met in Honduras, they were like, okay, so our senior year, where are we going? Thailand, and listing off all these places. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
very much for her,
Mhm.
there are no limits. It's not even a question of would you travel to go do X, Y, and Z. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, well, how can I make this work?
Yes. No, I love that. I love that. So, okay, so I want to shift gears a little bit to talk about, because one of the things that you said, and we've had a couple people that have been in and out. So I just want to say hello. There's someone out there. So whoever you are, hello. Thank you for joining. Um, so one of the things that you said when we first started talking was that you asked yourself the question, if I had to live my life the way that it is forever, would I be happy? I'm paraphrasing. I know you didn't say it exactly like that, but that was the gist of what you said at the top of our conversation, and shifting gears, talking about choices that we make and making big life choices, particularly in midlife. I want to kind of delve into that a little bit more and talk about what was that like for you when you had that revelation for yourself, say, okay, something has got to change. How much time did it take for you to actually start moving in the direction of changing your life? Because you were married, you had children. So, what did that look like for you in that transition?
Um, I don't think it took very long. Again, is it because I'm an Aries? Is it the undiagnosed ADHD? I don't know. But
Hmm.
as soon as I answered that question for myself, I was
Hmm.
like, okay, what does what is it that you want? How
Hmm.
do we make it happen?
Mm.
I, I don't know. Maybe for some people, me talking about the end of my marriage and choosing to do that, they may feel like, oh, that's a loss. No, best move I ever made my whole entire life. Okay.
Mm.
Uh,
Yes.
and so, because being quote unquote partnered with somebody who doesn't want the best for you and doesn't want to see you happy, that is no way to live life. So immediately that began.
Hmm.
And I started, that would have been in like November. By January, I'm already taking advantage of opportunities that have presented themselves to me. Within a
Hmm.
year of that, I was leaving the United States.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
that's that's a very quick shift. Hi, Gabby. I see you. That's a very, very quick shift. And I think you touched on something else that I think a lot of people do, is that when the tendency is when you see people partnered and then they're no longer partnered, or say they're not, that knee jerk that a lot of people have is, oh, I'm so sorry, or that it's automatically a bad thing that they're leaving, versus finding out the reasons why they need to leave, and that is actually the better thing for them to do. I think that, I feel like there's a shift in focus in that a little bit. Socially, we're seeing more people recognizing that it's not this, oh my gosh, woe is you if you're no longer partnered in a relationship, rather than, okay, let's congratulate you for stepping into your own agency and doing what you know that is best for you. So I think that, that's definitely something that I would like to see more of, people leaning into
Yeah.
that thought.
And that is exactly what it was. That was the first step in actually being able to live the life that would allow me to be my fullest self and to
Mm,
be happy.
mhm,
And again, it didn't take me a lot of time. I will say the biggest thing, and I've talked about this in a number of places, was really sitting and thinking about what is it that I want, not what have I been taught that I am supposed to want? What has society said these are the marks of achievement? Because honestly, for me, a lot of those boxes that we're supposed to be trying to check, once I checked the box, I was like, is this it? This
mm,
ain't really, I'm not really feeling this. And
mhm,
so once I could say, these are the things that are important to me and completely disregard what I thought society would say, or what society
Mhm.
had said. No, 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 this is what you're supposed to want. Once I
Yes.
identified what are the things I want to do, okay, how do I make this happen?
Yes. And congratulations to you for doing that. And because there are so many there, I mean, as we know, there are so many people that are stuck in, especially I think once you get to midlife, because I think that there is this idea, okay, my life is supposed to look a certain way, especially once I get to a certain age. And so if I make these bold moves or I make a shift, how is that going to look? And it always is based upon outside influences or what you think other people are going to say. And if people can really just tap into, like you did, what is it that I want? What is it that's going to make me happy? And like you said, you check the boxes, right, of what we have been conditioned to believe we're supposed to have and do. And you arrive there and we're like, wait a minute, this doesn't feel right. And it saddens me to think about how many more people arrive to that point and they check those boxes and they go along with what they think they're supposed to be doing. And then they realize they're unfulfilled, but they feel like they have to stay there because of those same reasons. And so, like I said, it's always my mission to try to shake people loose of that, because it's prison, really. It's really kind of just being trapped in a life that is not authentic to you and what you want to be living and doing. And like I said, especially I think that in midlife, it can be even more challenging for people to make that determination because, like I said, people say it's a midlife crisis, which is bullshit. But
I would say it's a certain clarity you get
yeah.
where, and I think that is part of the magic that comes at midlife. It is, you can see things and
Mhm,
people for exactly what they are, and
mhm.
there's a certain amount of clarity, like, I don't enjoy this does not bring me joy, this is not making me happy, this is not fulfilling me in a
Yes.
way that I think a younger version of yourself might often not even acknowledge those feelings and just kind of keep going, because eventually it's all going to click.
Hmm,
And
hmm.
again, I think at midlife you have a certain amount of clarity and you're like, this is not it, let me move on to the next thing.
Yes. So then, so I'm wondering what has surprised you? Because how old are you now? How old are you now?
50, I'll be 51 in March.
Okay, okay. And I'm also an Aries. I'm an April Aries baby, and I will be 50 in April. So I'm curious to know from you what has surprised you about being in midlife.
I think the thing that's surprised me and kind of continues to surprise me is how good my life could be. Like, I often talk about, like, if I could have been the 40-year-old me, if I had known the things she knew when I was in my 20s, like, oh, it would have been a whole different story. So
Right?
it's,
Yes.
yes, like, oh, I had no idea it could be this good. And this is
Hmm.
where I think society does us women a huge disservice. They make you think you're old at 35. uh and I may use the word old to reply to myself, to refer to myself, but like, that as women get older, they're less attractive, they're less important, blah blah
Hmm.
blah.
Hmm.
And that's, I guess, what surprised me, because maybe on some level I believe that, but my life the last 10, 11 years has been fucking incredible. And
Mm.
like, I didn't know it could be
Mhm.
that good. Not for me, not for somebody who grew
Ooh.
up the way I did and who came from where I came from. So that's
Mm.
probably the thing that has surprised me the most.
Mhm. So do you think, so then your 25-year-old self had a I'm this let me ask it and not assume. So did your 25-year-old self, when you thought about getting older or midlife, you did think, okay, things are going to be over. Or like did you not look at aging as something that you were excited to do, or did you, or was there a
No,
mixture?
I can tell you at 25, I wasn't excited to age. Honestly, I
Hmm.
didn't think I would. So like when I turned 50 last year, a lot of it was like the surprise that I got to be 50. And I
Mm,
don't know, I never thought about, I didn't think about life more than turning 25. After
mm,
that, it was just, I guess I felt like you just kind of keep doing the same thing and eventually you don't wake up anymore. I don't know. But
mhm,
I did not have, I definitely was not eagerly looking forward to being 40. I
mhm,
wasn't thinking about how cool it was going to be older.
mhm.
Uh, Not at all. I
Yeah.
think I thought it was just going to be a lifetime of monotony, and
Yeah.
not that monotony is a bad thing, because when I think about how I live my life now, it's a lot of the same things,
Yeah.
but it's the stuff I want to do. So it's great.
That part. Yes, yes, because your point, because it's true. Because like you said, there is a lot of my, like when you said that, I was like, yeah, I pretty much days look, things are pretty much the same, but it feels good to me. Like to your
Yes,
point, I'm making and doing the things I want to be doing, and so even if it's the same or it looks the same, it feels great because it's a life that has been chosen by me, and that is
that
totally the
part,
difference. Hmm.
that part. I would say, friend of mine, Krishan Wright, talks about living on purpose and not by default.
Mm,
And 25-year-old me only knew how to live by default.
mm,
So she had no concept of, because, like, yes, you are told growing up, oh, you can be anything you want, blah, blah, blah. But the reality of the world smacks you in the face, and then it's like, no. So
mhm, mhm,
early part of my life, a lot of default happening. So I
mhm,
had no concept that I could
mm.
create a life that looked like something I wanted, that was completely based off of, this is what makes me feel good. This is what
Yeah.
brings me fulfillment. I had no
Mhm,
concept of that at 25.
mhm. So then what point in your life, because you had said earlier that you had thought about like living abroad was something that had come, that you had wanted to do rather. When did that dream start to materialize? Was this like before you came to the conclusion, okay, I need to leave this marriage and do something? Like, was it happening at the same time?
Well, it had come up because, like, when I was in high school, I took Latin and I took French. I wanted to do a study abroad in high school for French,
Mhm,
but didn't, because I was
mhm.
like, oh, I'll miss the prom and all of that, which was stupid. But when you're 17, that's how you think.
Of course.
Um, and it had come up again as like, well, maybe we'll retire abroad. And through the course of the marriage, it became very clear that when I talked about being abroad and when he talked about being abroad, it was not the same thing. It
Oh,
was, let's go. His version was, let's go visit some Caribbean island. Okay, we'll mix it up and visit a different one this time. And I'm like,
okay.
but what about Africa? What about Asia? What about Europe? And so, um, probably 4 or 5 years before things finally fell apart, there was an opportunity. I had learned about, like, oh, they like having English speaking, US certified, Canadian certified, UK certified teachers you could teach abroad.
Mhm,
And I had an opportunity to apply for a gig in Saudi Arabia. Again,
mm.
I'm not trying to live in Saudi Arabia, but just the idea of, like, oh, I
Yes,
get to live in another country. And
yes.
that's where I could see, like, oh, this is something we don't see eye to eye on, and
Mhm,
probably never will.
mm. Okay.
And so, when I knew that I was leaving, again, I thought about what are all of the things that I had ever wanted to do.
Mm,
And for some reason, because of the kids, because of the husband, because of the cost, whatever it was,
yes.
what were the things that I had put to the side and
Mm-hmm.
never come back to? And so
Mm,
I revisited that list and thought about, oh, is this something I still want to do?
mm-hmm.
And went from there.
And so, would you say now that you have checked off all of those things, what is still left on your list that you want to do now?
Excuse me. I know that this is an incredibly privileged thing to say because literally I have pretty much done everything and gone every place I could want to do. Like I still want to go back and take more salsa classes. Like I want to get better at that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but probably the only thing, if I believed in bucket lists, which I don't, but if
Mm-hmm.
I believed in bucket lists, the one thing that I have yet to do is to go to Australia. And it's not for the reason that most people would think. There
Okay.
is a peanut butter restaurant in Sydney, Australia. And I have tried at least 3 different times to get to Australia so that I can eat at this place.
Okay.
Um, that is literally probably the only thing that I was like, I want to do that. I'll be sad if I don't ever get to do that. That's
Mhm.
probably the only thing left.
I think that's incredible, Adalia. And I know that you prefaced it by saying that this is a very privileged thing to say.
It
And I
is.
would just say that, okay, perhaps, but I feel like aside from that, that's a very blessed and wonderful thing to be able to say. I feel like to me, hearing that or seeing that, I think gives people encouragement, hope in this whole conversation, even about what is possible if you allow yourself to divest from what you think things are supposed to look like or what you think your life is supposed to look like. And so for you to have said that at one point in your life you couldn't even imagine 50, to not only getting there but getting there in a way that was completely designed by you is so incredible. So I think that's a more incredible statement than I think it is privileged personally. Like when I hear it, that doesn't even come across my mind because yes, and you should be able to, you deserve. You know what I'm saying? Like that's always my thought about that.
There are people who might hear that and might make assumptions about like, well, how many places I've traveled. I haven't traveled everywhere, but here's the thing, I also don't want to. Like
Mm,
the places I want to go, I have gone.
mm-hmm,
Um, or they'll be like, oh, well, it's because she has all this money. We've already established.
mm-hmm,
I don't have, didn't have, won't have a lot
mm-hmm,
of money. But what I did do was get very, very clear
mm-hmm,
on what was important to me and what I wanted to do. And I
mm-hmm,
found a way to make that happen
mm-hmm.
in a way that I was okay with. I mean, here
Yes.
I am, I'm pushing 51 and I
Mm-hmm,
have a roommate.
mm-hmm,
But low key, that's also been an incredibly great decision for me.
mm-hmm,
Um, and that allows me, or part of me wanting to have a roommate was so that because I had this vision, I thought I wanted to
mm-hmm.
split my time between Mexico City and someplace else.
Okay.
And by having a roommate, I wouldn't have to pay full rent in Mexico City and full rent somewhere else. But
Mm-hmm,
low key, the whole roommate thing is really bigger than like the cost, the affordability piece of it. And
mm-hmm.
I also discovered I don't want to be anywhere else. I only
Mm.
want to be in Mexico City.
Yeah, I was just about to ask that, Adalia. I was just about to ask you, like, if this, well, first I was going to ask you two things. So I'm glad you brought that into the discussion because I did want to talk to you about the transition from living by yourself to deciding to live with a roommate. So I do kind of want to get a little bit more information about that. But then also, is this it? Is Mexico City it in terms of like your home base?
From the moment I came here in 2017, it has felt like home. And so I knew wherever else I went in the world, because I knew eventually I would probably go work someplace else, what have you. I knew
Mhm.
I would come back at some point, whether that
Mhm.
was 2 years, whether that was 10 years, what have you. When I came back in 2020, as far because when I was living in China, I was having a conversation with a friend. And because when I decided to leave China, this was pre-pandemic. So I was
Mhm.
like, okay, maybe I should go to Medellin. I still haven't been. Maybe
Mhm.
I should, spend some time in Georgia, Albania. I can bump around there for like a year. I knew eventually I'd end up back in Mexico, but I didn't
Mhm.
know when.
Yes.
And because I wanted to make sure that, like, I wasn't, because of my love for Mexico City, I wasn't ignoring a good possibility somewhere else.
Mhm.
Because of the pandemic, those options were non-existent, which was fine. But when
Mhm.
I was talking to my friend, she was like, you should just go back to Mexico. She's like, that's where you had the best quality of life. That's where
Mhm.
you were happiest. And I thought about it and I was like, she's right.
Mm.
So, for the first 2, 3 years after I came back here, I still thought, because the idea of having residency in multiple countries, I liked having those options.
Yes.
But I can't find a place that I want to be more than I want to be here.
Okay.
So, as far as I am concerned, this is home. Soy
Mhm.
chilanga.
Yes. I love it. I love it. And then okay, so then back to then the roommate piece, because obviously when you came here, you were solo, you were living on your own. I have followed you and your content for some time now to know that you talk about being an introvert and liking to do your own thing. So how has that transition been for you? I know that you just kind of sort of touched on it, so and it seems as though it's been positive for you, but how was that transition for you?
Um, it was very surprising because, particularly, I got married when I was 19. I got divorced when I was 39. So I have been
Okay.
living with somebody else for like 20 years.
Yes.
Um, and I luxuriated when I got my own apartment before I left the States. I luxuriated in my aloneness,
Mm-hmm.
and continue to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But being here, and this is a place where people tend to live multi-generationally. It is,
Mm-hmm.
I, I never was 100% comfortable with what it might say about me that I lived alone.
Mm.
And and again,
What
I
it might say
shouldn't
about
care
you
about
here?
that.
You're saying you
Yes.
were concerned.
Look,
Okay.
or the optics of it,
Okay.
particularly when you sandwich that with so many foreigners who come here and
Mm-hmm.
exploit the difference in wealth, because that's not what I was trying to do. But I could
Mm-hmm.
see how somebody might look at me living alone in a 2-bedroom apartment and draw those conclusions. Not
Mm-hmm.
that that was the driving force, but that was back there. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, if I'm gonna be Mexican, maybe I should live in a more Mexican way. You
Okay.
couple that with the economic piece, because again, if I was going to split my time and I'm not somebody who has a lot of money, how do I make that work? That
Mm.
is one way to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And it just so happens that the friend that I live with, we met here,
Mm-hmm.
and I've had people come visit me who
Mm-hmm.
are people I love, but I kept thinking, when are you going home? And not in a bad way, but
Right.
more in like the introvert way that I need to be alone in my space.
Yes.
And when one time she was at my apartment and I did not feel that way. And I took note of that. And I was like, "Hmm,
Mm.
yeah." And
Mm.
so the thought then was planted, like, maybe I could live with her. And I've
Mm-hmm.
said this before, it's sort of it, a lot of people, particularly people in midlife, are like, oh my gosh, I couldn't have a roommate.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, we live apart together.
Yes.
And it is not, I am not expected to be on all the time. If I
Mhm.
want to stay in my room, I can do that. If I just want to sit in
Mhm.
the living room and be quiet and read my book, that's a thing. There are no expectations on
Yes.
each other in that
Yes.
way.
Mhm.
So my introvert needs, we're technically both introverted, but few people are as introverted as I am. And so I happen to live with somebody with whom that works well.
Mm. Yeah, that sounds like a perfect combination. And listen,
It really, it
I'm sorry,
really
go ahead.
is.
No,
No,
yeah,
I
no,
was just saying, it really worked out. I like, could I live with someone else? Quite possibly. But
Mhm.
things worked out in such a way
Mhm.
that the person I do live with, like, it couldn't have been any better than this, I don't
Mhm.
think.
Mhm. I think that's wonderful. And I think, again, to your point about making choices that just feel good to you. Because, yes, when you have people that will say things or make assumptions about if you do have a roommate, what that means, especially at a certain point in life. And I'm like, hold up. First of all, if you're in the same age group, you know what the Golden Girls, you know what I'm saying? You know what what we grew up looking at in a model actually of what is, possible and outside of the quote unquote norm that was beautiful. So I just think that, it's interesting that people
And
say that.
it's also coming to realize that the American ideal that you move out, you get your own place, blah, blah, blah. Like, nobody lives like that in the rest of the world.
So
There's
true.
so many things in US American culture that we believe we are supposed to be doing on our own, that
Hmm.
people in other places never do alone. They're either doing it with family, born or chosen, or what have you.
Yes.
And that's something that occurred to me. And I was like, no, this is the right choice, particularly for the way in which I live my life. And then again, I live in a country where my mastery of the language is not 100%. You
Hmm.
know, I have a built-in person who's like, hey, is Adelia still alive today? I was just talking to my friend about China has an app called Are You Dead?
No, they don't. Are you
Because
serious?
yes,
Is
it's
it
one
really
of the
called
top
that, Delia?
apps. It is called Are You Dead? Because it's sort of the opposite thing happening in China now, where more young people are choosing to live alone. Because previously they've lived multi generationally. So now
Hmm.
these people are living alone. That is isolating. And so they've developed this app where, like, you have to check in with the app every day. And if you don't check in for 2 days, then they're sending services to your house to, do a
Wow.
welfare check or what have you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so to me, there's some choices that I have made in this part of my life that run very counter to what we've been taught as US Americans. This is how you're supposed to do. And
Hmm.
one of my biggest beefs is in the individualism
Mm.
in US American culture.
Hmm.
And this is kind of like my response to that in a way. Part of
Hmm.
it is.
Hmm. Yeah. And as you were talking, Adelia, I was thinking about that. And I was thinking about how, like you said, it's very American, this very individualistic way of life, and that your life is supposed to follow this certain trajectory. And when you're at a certain age, it's frowned upon if you are still with family, like you said, chosen or otherwise, or if you have a roommate, the assumptions that are made about that. And it just kind of drives home the point to me how like deliberate and by design that is, and how it's almost set up to where have people be individual, because if you are not in community or maybe not living with someone, trying to figure it out on your own, even financially, right? If you were to make certain choices where you can, split costs or lower your monthly expenses or what have you, which can very well come from if you are sharing space. It's almost like it's designed to kind of have you be so solo and then be in this constant loop of trying to make more do like, it just seems like that's almost like that's the point of why it's been sold to us that way.
A lot of those things that drive the, oh, I gotta make more, I gotta have more money, I gotta do this. A lot of those elements no longer exist in my life
Mm,
because of the way that I have chosen to structure it.
mhm,
So, like I said, I gotta make some money because I gotta eat, but that is not, I'm very lackadaisical about it in a way that I never was in the first
mm,
part of my life. And I
mm.
do attribute that to the life that I've built over the last decade.
Yeah. Yeah, and divesting from that conditioning of what is supposed to be, what it's supposed to look like. Because if it doesn't feel like you, what are we doing? You know what I'm saying?
Why are we
Like,
doing it?
why? What and why? Okay, so before we get ready to wrap up our conversation, I do two things. Um, I am interested to know, is there anything that isn't so great or doesn't feel so great about being in this stage in life, being in midlife? Like any challenges that come to mind?
I mean, I have challenges. I don't know if this is a midlife thing or if this is just a me thing. One of my biggest challenges is because of my introversion. I don't want to talk to people I don't know. I don't
Mm,
enjoy it.
mhm.
However, anybody who's tried to learn another language knows you got to talk.
Yes,
So,
yes, yes, you
like,
do.
I want to integrate more into the community here.
Mm,
That requires Spanish, and my Spanish is functional. There
mhm,
is, I mean, I was going to say virtually there's nothing I can't do in Spanish. Like my medical Spanish ain't anywhere close where it needs to be.
mhm,
But I would like to integrate more with my community. And I think I need better Spanish. My friends tell me, you got plenty Spanish, you just got to talk. And I don't think people understand what a hurdle that is for me.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's the bane of my existence these days.
right. Listen, I
But
feel you.
I can't. Uh, okay, there is one other thing, and this is sort of in light of what is going on in the United States
Mm,
in this moment.
mhm,
When I part of the reason that I chose to leave the United States, one, I always wanted to live abroad. I wanted to learn another language, but
mhm,
also I could see that the United States was not a safe place for a person like me, a person
mm,
who thought the way I thought, who
mhm,
believed the way I did. I
mhm,
did not believe that, like, we should be having a conversation whether or not healthcare is a right or a
mm,
privilege.
yes.
Like I'm watching this conversation happening and I'm saying that doesn't align with my values. So
Mhm,
that is part of why I left. But
mhm,
now I'm out. I will be out for the rest of my life,
mm,
but my children are there. My grandchildren are there.
mhm,
And having to kind of reconcile that, as much as I might say, hey, I can help you,
mhm.
start over somewhere else. My children
Yes.
are adults. They get to
Mhm,
make their choices. And if
yeah,
they want to stay in the country of their birth,
mhm,
what does that mean for me having to watch the trajectory that the United States is on and the
mhm.
people I love are there?
Yes.
That is something I am navigating now that I don't know how. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but that's kind of a not great thing right now.
Yeah. And I 1,000% echo that. I can't tell you how many times over the course of the time that I've been here, where things will happen in the US as they've been continuing to happen. And they'll be like, oh, I know that you're so glad you got out of here. And I know you're so, and I'm like, yes, and my entire family and everybody that I love is there. So there's not this separate, it's not as comforting as you think that it is. I always say that to
Yeah.
people. It's like, yes, I'm glad that I made this choice, but I cannot fully disengage because of those reasons. So I so totally agree with that. It is a challenge always. It's just there, like you said, and people have to make the decisions that they feel are best for them. And if that means that they want to stay and not explore options to not be there, then that's always going to be a thing, right? And I'm always going to be going back to the States for something, to see my family and to be with them and so on and so forth. So that's always something that's weighing. So I totally echo that completely. Okay, so before we wrap, two last things that I want to do is just a quick little rapid fire. These are just questions that are just, you'll see. Like they're just fun questions to ask. And then I want to know what you would tell a 25-year-old that is concerned about or fearful about aging. What would you tell someone that's 25 and looks to getting older as something that is negative, or they are apprehensive about that? What would your advice be? But first, we're going to do the rapid fire, and then I want to end on that note. So I got 5 questions here for you. Actually, let me pull them up so I can, if I remember, because I don't remember exactly what they were. Okay. Morning person or night owl?
Morning.
Okay.
I go to
Really?
bed at
That's
like 7
surprising to me
p.m.
for some reason.
Now, my roommate is a night owl. I am an early bird. So again, it works out. It's almost like we're not in the same place at the same time.
Okay. All right. 90s R&B or early 2000s or 2000s R&B?
I'm gonna say 90s, although technically I'm not really an R&B girly, but early
Wait, hold
90s.
on. Hold on. What do you mean you're not an R&B girly? What does
I'm
that mean?
I'm not. I didn't know this about myself until fairly recently, that I other people, like, we have people over to the house and music is playing and people are singing a song and I'm thinking to myself, I would have just skipped that. And then I notice the songs that I always skip are like R&B songs. I guess I was too much of a hood rat growing up. Now, like 70s and 80s soul,
Okay.
yes, but R&B, not my top, not my top. But if I
Okay.
gotta choose, I'm gonna go with 90s.
Okay, so then you would say, and I know this is supposed to be rapid fire. I know I'm not doing this the right way, but that just threw me for a loop. So the 70s and 80s soul, that is, what other genres of music are you into?
I I I was born an old lady, so like blues,
Okay.
but then at the same time, like, uh, good Lord, I sound like ridiculous saying this, gangster rap, because I'm almost 51 and saying gangster rap. That sounds
That's
ridiculous.
okay.
But that is like the stuff I grew up on. So, like, of
Okay.
course, I could still say all of the lyrics. So yeah.
Listen, and sing. Like there's no shame in that, Adalia. There's no shame in stating that, and there's no shame in saying that you can still recite the lyrics because listen, I'm right there with you. Okay, salty or sweet?
Sweet.
Okay, mountains or the ocean?
Ugh. It ain't the ocean because I hate the ocean. Mountains, if I don't have to climb them. Either I'm just looking at them or someone else is called. I'm taking a helicopter, but not the ocean.
Okay, but you said you hate the ocean. That's a strong
It
statement.
is. I will look at the ocean, but I don't
Okay.
want to be in it. I don't want to smell it. I don't want to be in the sand. I don't want to be there.
Okay, interesting. So from afar, if you're at a nice
Yes.
resort or somewhere and you have the view
Yeah.
from
I sit somewhere
afar,
with
that's
my book and look at the ocean. And
Okay.
again, I didn't know this about myself till a long time until I realized I kept going on these beach vacations and I never got in the water. And I was like, that's because I don't like it.
Wow. This is also surprising too. Okay, but listen, again, this whole conversation has been about owning and knowing what you like, what you want, what feels good to you.
When I initially called my blog Picky Girl Travels the World, it was supposed to be like a tongue-in-cheek kind of joke because I am a picky eater.
Yes.
But as time has progressed, you can see that I am picky about a lot of things. I am very particular. And in this part of my life, I have
Yes.
embraced that. So I
Okay.
lean heavy into the picky.
Okay, I love that. I love that. And listen. Let me talk. Just let me put a disclaimer here for anybody that's watching. There's a couple people watching now, and whoever might come back. There were things that I had planned to ask Adalia, and in your mind, you're like, okay, I'm gonna ask this, I'm gonna ask that, I'm gonna let you know. I did ask some of those things, but some things just went out the window because we were just flowing with the conversation. I'm saying that to say that in this whole conversation, I did not ask her about Picky Girl Travels and how that came to be. And I know I said we were about to wrap, and I promise we are, but please tell the people how Picky Girl came to be and what led you to start a YouTube channel, start a community around Picky Girl. We have to put this part in here.
Um, I'd been using Picky Girl Travels on Instagram, and when I moved abroad, um, this was 10 years ago. Everybody was blogging, and I really approached having a blog as more of for my children to have a place to like be able to understand me as a person.
I love that.
Because there's so many of us that don't know our parents as people. And often the parents pass before you ever get a chance to ask some of those things. And
Mm-hmm.
so who knows if my kids will ever like sit down and have a conversation with me. But I was like, okay, I will leave this record of, what I thought, my opinion. So that's
Mm-hmm.
really how the blog started. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I absolutely did not want to be on YouTube. Never want to deal with video at all. And then in 2021, I uploaded my first video. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and again, sort of like the blogging, a friend of mine was like, you should really be, because I skipped a part. I
Mm-hmm.
had a podcast for a few
Okay.
years, started a
Mm-hmm.
podcast in 2020. And the
Mm-hmm.
podcast, which I also named Picky Girl Travels,
Mm-hmm.
because it was just more of like this new life that I had built. A friend of mine was like, there are women who are also trying to sort this out and like being able to hear the experience of somebody who has done it. And
Mm-hmm.
the Picky Girl Travels podcast is about defying convention, embracing adventure, and regretting nothing.
Mm.
So
Love.
was doing the podcast, got convinced like you ought to be on YouTube. And
Mm-hmm.
so, kind of the YouTube channel brought all of that together. The conversations that I was having with other Black women who
Mm-hmm.
were living life on their own terms,
Mm-hmm.
coupled with the content that I made about, living abroad, why I
Mm-hmm.
chose Mexico, as well as the content for like financial education,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of what has allowed me to create this life that I have is
Mm-hmm.
because I understood how to get the most out of the little bit of money I had.
Mm.
I've told this story a bunch of times, but part of what ended up leading me down this path was my time in Kuwait, because when I left Kuwait, or my decision to leave Kuwait, was completely independent of, well, I won't get my check because
Mm.
I had FU money.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that you should be in a position to leave a person, a place, an experience that is not good for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked around and I was like, all right, I'm going to get out of here. But I'm looking at all these other women I work with who did not have that choice. And I was like, so what's the difference between them and me?
Mm-hmm.
And it was the money. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, but again, I'm not special here. I didn't inherit money, what have you. It was, I took my little bit of money and I was able to
Mm-hmm.
do things with it that then gave me the freedom, gave me the options to be able to leave this situation. So when I retired, I was like, well, that's what I'll do. I will help other women
Mm-hmm.
with their money so that they too can have FU money and be able to leave and do whatever it is they want to do.
Yeah.
So all of those things come together on the YouTube channel.
Amazing. And yes, I will make sure that the link is in the description to Adalia's YouTube. Like I said at the beginning of this conversation, Adalia, so instrumental to me. And I'm so glad that I found you on YouTube. I watched pretty much, I don't know how many videos of yours I've watched, but a lot of them. And it was, I mean, so incredibly valuable. And you always come with such value, so much information, and we're all thankful for you and what you do. And I'm so glad that you went ahead and created the channel, even though you were trepidatious about doing it at first. I know that so many women have changed the trajectory of their life just by virtue of coming across you and just seeing even your example and what you were able to do and create in your own life. So I think that is incredible. So thank you for showing up and sharing that with all of us. Uh, so final thoughts. I would like to know what advice you would give to a 25-year-old that might be watching this and might have some fears or, challenges or not sure how they feel about aging. What would you say to them about getting to this stage in life?
This is going to sound cliche, but aging is a gift. And it is a gift that is denied a whole lot of folks.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't get older, what is the alternative? So I will admit I didn't necessarily see it as a gift,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm so incredibly happy that I did get to be here because
Mm-hmm.
again, like life is so good. Life is
Mm-hmm.
so good here.
Mm-hmm.
And I want a 25-year-old to know that she is going to be such an ass kicker.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm selling this, and I know somebody 25 will hear me say that, and they're like, it can't be like that. Like, no, girl, the
Mm-hmm.
woman you become in your late 30s, your early 40s, you will be like, damn, I am a badass. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's what you get to look forward to that.
Yes. Yes. I agree. I agree. It's like you said, what is the alternative? If you're not aging, then what happens? So that is very true. I think that's a beautiful note to end this conversation on. Thank you so much again, Adalia, for taking the time to sit down with me and have this conversation. Like I said, I created this particular channel because I really want people to understand how wonderful life, particularly in midlife, it's not the end, it is the beginning of so much more that you can do and create and be. It is not the end. It is an opportunity to really lean further into the life that you want to build for yourself. So thank you for sharing all the
Absolutely.
ways that you have done that, Adalia. I appreciate you. For those that popped in, thank you for doing so. If you're watching this from the future, please drop us a comment. Let us know. Let us know what nuggets you took from this. And thank you, everyone, again. And we will talk soon. I'll see you on the next Candid with Krista chat and otherwise. Thanks, Adalia.